So I apologize. It's been a little bit. This probably will be, I guess, the first, and probably only video that I do on Scum, unless it somewhat popular. The whole point is that I've seen a lot of good information on YouTube, things like that, but I think people might not connect some of the dots on a few of these things, which I'm kind of. I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the only ones that has been saying this. I've been posting a little bit on Reddit. Um, I'll try and not take up too much time because I got this little puppy that I got to take care of. But I want to go over these stats and some build things with stats that I don't really see anyone else talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of explain most of that. And towards the end, I will show you also a place that's really good to build on the map, just to kind of start out to explain a little bit of what I'm talking about, maybe with some of these skills. Now, I don't really have a script or anything. I'm going to go offhand. What I'm going to say first off is that your build, I think, should specifically work in the environment you plan to live at the first of your game experience. So, if you ever look at your map, like the top northern sections are snow, all of that. The middle sections have a lot more forest and shrubbery, and then the lower sections tend to have more like rocky mountains with some shrubs and trees. So, for instance, camouflage, if you are using camo and you are in the middle of the map where every 2 feet is a bush, yes, you will be invisible. You will be able to capitalize that on a whole lot more, but it's not as effective because there are so many bushes. Um, Essentially, if someone's close to you, they're not going to be able to see through all the bushes anyway, so stealth may be better. If it comes to long distance fights, you could still argue for camo, but since you're going to be in a bush 99% of the time in your location, that skill will probably level up fairly quickly. If you're in a place like the winter biome up north, I don't think you really need any special. Here, I'll set you down real quick. Oh, go plate. I don't think you really need any special like camouflage skills because there's not very many bushes up in that section of the map. Now, from what I've seen, um, I will equate this as well to survival skill and engineering. I do not think that you have to start the game with survival and engineering. I think it's completely possible to level both up to medium in a relatively short period of time. The question is, how much time do you want to spend building a base if that's going to be your priority when you hit the ground? Because you got to see if you want to focus on combat or do you want to focus on building, or any of these kind of things are going to affect the skills. Now, as you can see with my build that I have on the character right now, 2.5, 1.5, 4, and 4. Now, this kind of has a multitude of reasons why I'm doing this, but essentially, when it comes down to intelligence, I was planning on building a base. I wanted to build a base with the small cabin and the large cabin and a building. So I wanted three separate structures. I wanted access to the medium lock and medium lock protection. And so that was pretty much the guarantee here that I was wanting to do. Now, when I look at this, uh, survival is almost too advanced. I had to make sure the pup wasn't getting in trouble. All right, so survival is almost an advanced. Now, one of the reasons that I kind of want to make this video as compared to everyone else making build videos and stuff is that every time that I see someone make a build video, they always go and say, hey, you want to start with max, like engineering, and they'll put it to max. Okay. I don't think that you should. There's a couple of reasons here. One is when you don't have as much experience in some things, I think it depends on your fame level as well. But you get fame for doing that. Okay. And two, specifically with the engineering skill, specifically with the engineering skill, uh, what does advanced unlock for you? And realistically, it's not that much. So advanced will give you like, I don't know, like advanced base fortifications, I think is survival. So advanced is going to give you essentially a large cabin, uh better walls and stuff that you can build. But the thing is, like when you start out, those better walls require more materials to build. So you're going to have to go out, find all those materials, get them back to your base before you can even build anything. Then, you unlock advanced lock protection, which is going to require more advanced materials to build, which you may not have access to, especially if you plan on living in the wilderness as compared to around a city. And this is probably some of the top points that I want to point out here. Thirdly, is that if you wanted to build those things with advanced engineering, you're going to have to build a foundation and everything else for your base before you even get to that point where you're building anything that's advanced. So, if you can calculate, figure out how much it costs you to go out and build your standard base, okay? And the example that I've used on some of my posts is essentially, so for me, what I'm finding out is that when you do an advanced skill, if you take 2 points out of that advanced skill, it's still going to require like 160,000 XP to level, okay? So this is where it all started with me, is that I wanted my skills to be more broadened and easier to level quickly compared to everything else. So you take 2 skill points out of it, you get 160,000 XP to fully level that. Now, from 0 to medium, it's 110,000 XP. Most people in this game have said at some point in time that 0 to medium doesn't take that much time to grind. It's fine. Okay? So, if 110 doesn't take that much time, probably less than an hour, maybe an hour, then 160 isn't going to be much better. Now, for me, when you go from 2 points to 3 points, that goes up to 200,000 XP. So, from that extra point there, I haven't really calculated this for everything, but for the extra point, you only gain 7% more value as compared to the point before it getting a lot more. So, 200,000 XP is a little bit longer than 0 to medium, but it's not that much longer, and you're saving 300,000 XP. So if I was going to go advanced engineering, you could go 3 points below and you could probably level it up fairly quickly. And from what I've seen online, some people were saying, just putting wood in some objects can give you like 2,000 XP. So if you do that, it's like 150 items. Boom, you got it advanced and you're good. And you save 3 skill points, which you can put in any of these stats. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. So we get 3. That's almost like a basic skill when you do that. Now, the reason that this build is doing intelligence and dexterity with a high survival was that I wanted to build bases and I wanted to be a trader. So trader needs goods, trader needs supplies. I need to build a base for it. I want at least access to medium because I don't plan on getting access to concrete and bricks and all of that stuff because it's going to take a while. And if I'm going to build that, I'm going to have to gather all the supplies beforehand anyway. Now, from what I believe, dexterity can increase your actual crafting speeds and stuff, and survival can increase your basic survival crafting and chopping trees and all of that stuff. So, with those two together, should give me, a lot of saved time at the beginning of the game collecting materials and things. But I want to go over everything basically from the beginning as much as I can. So, strength skill, most people know, okay, increases your strength, increases your calorie consumption, all of that. Now, it's interesting because the attributes kind of play on each other. It's kind of interesting because if you have a high strength, you're consuming more calories. Uh, I seem to think that it affects your dexterity because your fat loss is dropping more rapidly, so your dexterity will level more. Conditioning is going to be running and your health and endurance, and I believe your stamina pool and stuff as well is affected. Now, for the most part, I don't think it's going to be that hard to level, but for me, running isn't the most important thing in the world. And then when they say that you can't like passively level running, care to sort of disagree. It's not exactly passively, but just yesterday, I had, I think, no running or basic running, and I had basically almost advanced endurance. And because I had this at 2 or something, I believe. So it was kind of balanced between strength. I just slid those 5 points over to strength. When I was running across the map, if you run through an area that has hills and you do a jog pace and not a sprint, you will jog and it will level up your running. And when you're going up hills, it'll decrease slowly, 1 or 2% stamina. And then when you're going downhill, you will regain your stamina. So I was able to run all the way across the map pretty much passively. It took like an hour or so, but it leveled up everything perfectly fine. Didn't ever have to stop, didn't have to worry. I think my character got close to wolves one time, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And there's plenty of roads and stuff around where you can do this. My main thing with endurance is that I want it for combat and other things as well. Plus, I think, I could level it to max while building a base, and then my running will basically catch up as I play the game. Dexterity, though, movement speed, crafting speed, all that other kind of speed stuff with dexterity. From what I've noticed when I made builds, even characters that had a really low constitution, it seemed that dexterity increased my movement speed way more than constitution did. So basically, when I had, medium to I think like semi-advanced running, I think I was running like 27 kilometers per hour or something like that. And then I think I had maybe uh, basic running or medium running or with dex, and it was like 30 something. But then I had a character that had 5 dex and not very much constitution or anything, and he was running 31, 32 kilometers per hour. So the weight gain and oh, she's laying underneath me. Okay, so that's good. The weight gain and the basic movement speed off of here just seems to work out pretty well when your character is a lighter weight, which could bear to why you don't necessarily want a bunch of strength. Now, when you look at this build that I got right now, why do you think I have brawling? Everyone hates brawling. Everyone thinks brawling's terrible. I understand that a lot of people dislike brawling. Here's the thing, okay? I believe brawling is better than every other skill in this category, and this is exactly why. Everyone says rifles is really easy to level, handguns is easy to level, archery is easy to level. You can get that to medium fairly quickly, and then using the weapon, you're going to get to advanced not too bad. I've used rifles with no rifle skill, and it works perfectly fine. It's just sniping, and all it is a little bit of sway. You snipe, boom, you hit a target, you don't. Oh my god, you missed. Okay, you suck. Not a big deal. Um, Melee does take a long time to level. Here is why I don't think melee is a good starting skill. Okay. Specifically, one, they talk about brawling ended up having combat types in the future. So that could be pretty important later on down the road. Uh, but melee weapons, it doesn't really seem to matter. All of the strength-based skills and everything else scale with strength. So the higher your strength gets, the more stable your gun's going to be. The more weight you're going to be able to carry, the more damage you're going to do with melee boxing and melee weapons. The difference is that melee weapons scale with the weapon damage as well. So we can take a basic spear. You take a spear and you do however much damage, let's say 18 damage. You go up to a stone spear and you do however much damage, 22 damage, let's say. It's a 4 damage increase. Okay. Those are the most basic weapons in the game, and they're also some of the better weapons to throw, not necessarily stab with. Now, when you go into weapons like the katana, with max strength, you can one or two shot people. With no strength, you can still two or three shot people. So the fact that there is an item that can negate all melee skill for the most part, I don't think it's worth it. And there's events that give you one hit kills with melee anyway if you did wanted to level it up in the first place. Now, with brawling, it's a little bit different because it affects your brawling speed and everything else. It's something that you're always going to have on you because when you spawn in the game, everyone knows you have like the two back slots and your hands. Okay. And then you end up making a knife and you got a few weapons under your disposal. Okay. But no one ever uses brawling, which is the main weapon your character has at the beginning of the game. If your weapon breaks, if you throw a weapon or anything else, all you have left is your hands. If you respawn and you get in a bad situation, all you got left is your hands. Now, I believe that brawling, throwing, and melee are all supposed to level together. However, if I was only going to level some at the beginning, I would level throwing and brawling together. Now, the reason behind this is because once you throw your melee weapon, you have no weapon. And so when you can do a punch combo, which can knock players down or zombies, puppets. Now, that means that you have time to retrieve thrown weapons during that period, and you can restart the fight. Now, if you have someone with brawling and throwing fighting somebody who has melee, the melee weapon user cannot throw his weapon because if he does, he loses all damage. Throwing, you only get 3 tries, maybe more if you have a backpack. So it's a very risky thing to do if you're focused on melee. Okay. Now, even with basic spears and no melee, you can kill most zombies, 5, 6 hits or something. With heavy, like advanced melee, you may be getting, 3 hits, something like that. But if you're fighting a player, movement speed becomes way more important than your actual damage because when people talk about your melee weapons, I mean, yeah, they do more damage, yeah, you can attack faster, but when it comes to player combat, people bob and weave a lot more. You're not necessarily just swinging constantly because you don't want to waste all your stamina and you don't want to miss and leave yourself vulnerable. So it's more of a tactical game when you have two melee guys or, two people fighting. Okay. So even if their weapon does 2 times the damage as mine and they can like 3 hit me and they hit me twice, but I'm a little faster, have a little bit more mobility, I'm able to stab. Maybe if they're doing twice as much damage to me, I'm gonna have to hit 4 times for their two. Okay. But if I hit two, I can still throw my weapon as well. And this is where it gets a little bit unbalanced. You can have times where your brawling will do more damage than actual physical weapon, but the physical weapon has more reach. But with spears and stuff specifically, when you're in a melee combat situation, movement is the most vital part, especially if you're fighting a player. So as soon as you damage their leg, as soon as you get them bleeding and they're not able to effectively maneuver, you control the fight. So you can do that, one, by throwing your weapon and hitting them in the leg, or two, by like using things like a spear or something with long reach and smacking their leg so that eventually gets crippled enough that they can no longer chase you around. And this is another reason why I think, a lot of these melee skills are less important is because if you lose your running, your movement speed no longer matters. Your melee damage no longer matters because you can no longer effectively use both of those skills. Brawling, not only is it able to effectively push into somebody, because with brawling you can attack very, very quickly, do a bunch of combos, quick fist, and you can knock somebody down to allow you to recover stamina or pick up your weapon and finish them off before they even get up. The other benefit that I never see people talk about with brawling is that it says it has effective blocking. So, one, this is going to make your health pool a lot bigger when it comes to puppets because you're going to be able to block and reduce their damage by up to like 80% or something. So you can like 4 or 5 times the amount of hits that you can take from puppets, which allows you to take on multiple puppets if you're good with this skill. It's also why endurance, I believe, is better than the running because as long as you're able to effectively fight and recover your stamina, you're good. And running doesn't really fix the problem. It helps you reposition, but it's not going to help you enough to actually fight a horde of zombies with your fists. Now, it does not specify the blocking efficiency purely for punching. You can block with melee weapons. However, I don't know if that applies over there. So, of this, brawling or melee are going to be your two things. I would just assume do brawling. I have brawling where it's like 3 or 4 below, and I have throwing where it's like 3 or 4 below. Okay. This means that I can use them together. And ideally, what I think I would do here is if you want to level brawling, melee, and throwing together, because they all level slowly and they're all kind of a pain, what you do is essentially get, 2 or 3 melee weapons. You would go in, hit the zombie a couple times with the melee weapon, throw a couple weapons into them, finish them off with your brawling skill, and then all of them get around about the equivalent amount of experience depending on what you're doing. And but for me, I'm going with this because at the start of the game, I'm basically just gonna take 3 spears, go run up to somebody, throw 3 spears at them, and then finish them off with the brawling. So my brawling and then my throwing will level up. I am currently, I think, 4 points below, so it'd be a little bit more than 200,000 XP. So it'll take me a little bit to level this, but I plan on using this at the beginning of the game, hunting and everything else instead of bows. Specifically because spears require less room than bows. Now, I may still carry a bow at some point to kind of have a backup plan if something happens, but any of these ranged options are just really easy to level. All right, so now we go to conditioning skills. Running, very important. We've seen the tests where they have medium running and medium endurance and they go really far. I would probably go and say if you're going to have a lot of conditioning, go medium running, medium endurance. I feel like it's going to be a very good start for you, very easy to do. For me, if you don't have a vehicle or anything at the very first, I think running is very important, but you're going to be using that all the time, whereas endurance will only level with how much weight you were carrying and stuff, your load. Also, though, with running, if your endurance is high enough, like I stated before, you can run pretty much all the way across the map, depending on the terrain, just with a jogging pace, which is perfectly fine. I pretty much ran, I think, there's like maybe 2 sectors, and I was at like, it's either 7 or 10% on run to basic. So if we do 10%, you're looking at, let's see, 2 sectors for 10%, so 20 sectors. And you have pretty much all game to do that. I mean, it may take a little bit, but you also got boats and bicycles and all that stuff that you can level your running with. And that's part of the thing is that those are the first vehicles you would have access to. They're one of the lowest, you know, radius effect that people are going to notice you skills that you would have. So I think bicycles and boats or rafts, I should say, are going to help you level this up quite a bit as well. And also, there's things that you can build, like the rafts, at the very first of the game. So I think that's pretty important. All these other ones, I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. But with brawling, even though our conditioning is lower, as long as we block, our HP value is going to be about the same when it comes to puppet fights. You could, if you don't really care about AI or anything like that, lower your dex down. You could go all the way down to 2.5 with the dex. And then if you didn't care about intelligence, you could go down there. Now, here's the deal with dexterity. Okay, for me, thievery I think is fairly simple, and you don't really need a bunch of stat points in it to get it going. Okay, some people disagree, but it's whatever. Driving, before I was basically putting stuff in driving because I was thinking I wanted to be able to drive something if I got my hands on it. But the more I've played the game, I mean, it's going to take you time to get the vehicles and learn where all the parts and stuff go and everything else. So it's not going to be the best skill to start off with. Demolition is good, but I don't really think landmines and stuff are the best option, especially early. I'm much a bigger fan of, say, the just the basic nail plank board trap, because it doesn't have to be reset, can be used multiple times, does quite a bit of damage and some bleeds. And so I personally like things that I don't have to micromanage quite a lot, and I think that is very good. It also doesn't take nearly as much to build those as anything else. I have heard, however, that advanced demolition, like as you go up, you can build more and more traps, which I would like, but I don't think it's the big thing. I would say that demolition, if I was going to choose between demolition and say engineering for base defense, I would go demolition. I feel like building trick bases and things with traps for bases is a pretty good option when it comes to not being raided, and then having a lock that people can pick. I don't think it's going to be the biggest thing in the world. For me personally, any survival game I've ever played, I've never really focused on building super defendable bases. Okay. The thing with that is that everyone always builds the same things. Everyone always knows how to break into those because they build the same things. They want to make everything the most efficient as possible. And then they have, the airlocks, or they just layer walls or whatever. It's a huge pain. For me, I see a base as a possible loot generation source. So I would completely just leave the door unlocked or something, and then let people go in there and die to my traps. I don't remember exactly what level engineering you need for this, but I think if you're going to have a lower tier base and you're going to use it as a trap base, that remote control door that you can have, it's either basic. I think it's basic engineering, might be medium, but I think with basic engineering or something, you can unlock that. And I think that would be what you would use. Just pretend that you left your door open on your base. People might be kind of wary because it's like a crappy base with like a kind of advanced door. But then when they go in and get damaged or whatever, you can simply close the door on them. Now, if they don't die to any traps, I mean, that's fine. But if they hit one of those spike traps, they're going to be heavily damaged and have a bleed, which makes it a lot easier for you to go over there and finish them off. All right. But deck skills, thievery if you want to be a big thief, demolition if you want to be very advanced in explosives, but you're still going to need the materials and things to make these explosives, and you're going to have to keep doing it every time that you get access to them. For me, I don't think that's worth it. Motorcycling is probably going to be one of the better skills that you got off the get-go, but I don't think it's going to be worth it. Aviation, not the biggest thing. How I will say is that the way that I'm talking to you about, say, let's go back to this, I believe. All right, so if we go over here, oh shoot. Okay, and we bring throwing and stuff down. And we go right below medium stealth. Let's go back to where we were. Okay. So now we have one extra point. And this is where I'm talking about having those partial skills to level up to the level that you want comes into play, because you can go and do something like this and level up another skill. Now, I think what I was doing before was I had like three, or I had some sort of ridiculous number in here. It was something like that, or I like had I don't remember exactly what I did. I think I did something like this, but I had more points. But you can see if you do that with five, I had something going with like five, and I had basically two stats. I think I had under stealth, and think I had like medium throwing or something. But it gives you enough skill points to almost level up one of those other skills. So a lot of people that go and they like want to drive a vehicle or something, they want basic driving to at least be able to start the car a little bit better and not completely suck. And that's understandable. The thing is you don't have to get basic. Okay, so it's, what was it, 10,000 XP for the basic skill on your level, right? So right there we're missing, I think, one or two. Yeah, we're missing 1 point there. I think out of five or something. That's like 2,000 XP. So the first time you start a car, you might suck with starting the car, but as soon as you drive that car down the road, you're going to hit basic, and then you're at least going to be a somewhat decent driver, okay? And it's not unrealistic, because it's basically like you getting in a car after you haven't drove for 50 years and the dials changed or whatever, and you're sitting there messing with the blinkers and all that. That's how I'm looking at it. But essentially, I had something that I think I just put it down to like medium stealth. So let's say we went medium stealth. I'll just go ahead and do it. We went medium stealth, and we wanted medium stealth, and we had 3 points of dex. We could go to advanced, but we just wanted medium. Then we don't even really need this. So that's going to be like 2,000 XP. This will be like 4,000 XP. And then we can save 2.6 dex. So we could go and almost have medium demolition. So by the time we build just basic traps, we will then have medium demolition unlocked. Or we could go and say, do this. Okay. Now, do you see the benefit of doing this? Right? It's not it's not the biggest thing in the world when you actually see it. A lot of people would probably say it's a waste, but here's what I'm saying is, so say we take this and we didn't want thievery, and we just go with the driving. We bump this up, or we don't bump that one up. Shoot, we bump this one up. Okay. For me, anytime that I've used stealth, I have never really went max stealth at the beginning of the game. The point is that 3 or 4 points down from advanced stealth, I can walk pretty much face to face with a puppet and not have any issues at all. So there's not much benefit for me to go from sort of half range medium stealth to advanced stealth. There's not. The only reason that I use it is for puppets and AI. Now, if you're a player that doesn't care about stealth or anything, I would say go into awareness. Because if you don't care about attracting AI, there's no point in having stealth. Because as far as I'm concerned, players are going to hear you. Players are going to like find some sort of audio mixer, something to make you sound crazy right here, or they're going to know where you're at. So, or you're just going to be having a bunch of gear or something. You're going to have max stealth, they're going to have max awareness, and they're going to be able to hear you. So, any case, I just don't think it's the best move to think that people can't hear you. There's a lot of survival games where they have these stealth mechanics, and I very much enjoy stealth mechanic and being able to sneak up on people. The only time it's ever worked though is if they're busy doing something else and they're not sure if they hear you or not because they're rummaging through somebody's loot or something like that. So a lot of times in games when you think that you're being stealthy, you're really not. So I just use this for AI. And even right here, it would probably give me a decent amount of distance to where I could somewhat get close to AI. And then I could level this up to, you know, halfway point or something fairly quickly. And then I know I can get pretty close to the AI anyway. But it's giving me almost basic on all three of these driving stats, which means that whenever I find a vehicle, I will be able to, take a little bit to get in the vehicle and start it the first time and all that. But within, a few minutes, you're going to have your basic skill and it's going to allow you to somewhat control the plane. And then you can just keep on going and go for all these other abilities. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Now, when we go to awareness, as you can see right now, I'm going survival and engineering because I wanted to build a base and I was trying to test how fast a high survival with a high dexterity would go. However, I wasn't maxing dex out to 5 because I know that dex levels fairly quickly at the beginning of the game, and especially because it's effective on like your weight loss. So I know when I lose weight, my dex is going to go up, and at 4 it'll probably take a couple days or something to go up to 5. It's not a big deal. Now strength being lower means that it'll level up a little bit faster, which would be nice, but I don't think it's going to be the biggest issue as compared to like conditioning or something like that. I think conditioning is going to take the most time. Stat leveling wise, running here is going to take the most time, but this is kind of twofold because if you're going to build, you need to carry weight. If you're carrying weight, you're going to lose uh, weight or body weight, which will help level dex. And you are going to level your strength underneath the load and also level your endurance. But since your running isn't as fast, your endurance is going to kind of be more important while you're running, and since it's taking you more time, then you can get this. But Dex also increases your movement speed by quite a bit. Let's go to awareness skill though. So awareness, if you have this up 100%, it's going to allow you to see and hear people that have the advanced camo and the advanced stealth. That's okay. It's not the biggest thing in the world. For me, I was more interested in the awareness skill for hunting purposes. Being able to hear the animals and things like that is very nice. I like being able to do that. And personally, for me, that sweet spot is somewhere around medium awareness. So, with that in mind, I figured if I'm going to be building a base, then every time I build materials and move it around and craft bundles and uncraft bundles and all that stuff, it's going to level up my awareness. And ideally, I'll be able to hit medium not too long. But also, I figured out that essentially with even zero awareness, as long as you hit an animal, you can track them, but your tracks are not nearly as good. I especially like having big to medium awareness for tracking, but it's something I'll have to live with at the beginning of the game. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Now, sniping, I think, will be kind of a later on thing. It shouldn't be that hard to level if I was going to snipe. That's when I would be using more trap bases because essentially I would bait them into the base, snipe somebody, and then kind of finish them off and take their stuff. I think sniping will be fine to level later. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Camouflage, I think this can level up fairly quickly. You're getting like you can get like 25 XP just like diving into a bush, I believe, something like that. However, I would say that if you want to max camo, drop it by like 3 or 4 points, just like everything else, and then it's going to take you about I think it was like 150 or 250 bush hops to kind of level it up. So when you think about that, like that's one of the important reasons why I think that you don't need to max out a skill all the way. If you want to start with advanced camo, that's fine. But somebody who starts with 4 less points in camo than you only has to drop down in a bush like 200 times and boom, they're pretty much on par with what you're doing. It's not that big of a deal. But survival gives us things that we can craft and do, okay, which one I find that's probably going to be pretty interesting, but there isn't no benefit really to going past medium survival, so I don't think this is the most efficient build in the world. Um, but since it decreases my speed in cutting down and breaking down materials and all of that, and I believe while building the base, this is going to go up and hit advanced, then I will have this and a decent amount of dex to kind of increase my speed on that particular skill. And then with engineering, this should hit medium relatively quickly. My whole goal here is basically to set up some basic walls, set up some platforms, and be able to build the small and medium cabins. And I'll pretty much be set at that point. And if I want to grind up advanced engineering, here's kind of what I'm seeing with this. Eventually, they said they're going to put these intelligence points where the more intelligence you have, the faster you're going to be able to level up all these stats down here. And you should be able to level up the intelligence stats sometime in the future, which tells me that it's probably not that important to actually start with 5 intelligence compared to everything else. Um, However, I would say that if you do, you probably don't need any engineering. As much as you would like to think that you would need a lot of engineering to build your base at the very beginning. If you have 5 intelligence, which means you can have like 5 or 6 teammates, that means that all you have to do is sit there and craft things while they give you resources, and you can level this up probably, in an hour. Who knows? If you have 6 people chopping trees and stuff down for you, and you're just building a bunch of stuff, I don't think this skill matters so much. If you're a solo player, I think it matters more, but I don't know how impactful it is. So if I wanted to build the big log cabin quicker, I think, I kind of would at some point. I would drop this down and then I would try and level up my actual survival skill while breaking down all the trees and stuff. This also is based kind of on where you build your base. So here's the way I kind of think about this is the more green areas, they have more bushes and things like that for you to chop down. So that's where you can get basic sticks, basic, everything else. If you're in the colder areas, you're going to have to cut down physical trees and then cut those down into sticks and then cut those sticks down into something else. So if you go into a cold zone and you want to save time, you can max survival. But also, your survival is going to max more in the cold zones because you have to break down more materials. Now, if you're in the more easier temperate zones, I don't think it's going to matter too much. Essentially, you can break down the bushes to get your basic sticks and supplies that way, which is essentially saving time because you don't have to do as work to get the stuff that you want. Pretty much something like that. But that's just kind of the basics when I'm going over this. If that was confusing at all, essentially, it's kind of think about your skills before you use them. Think about where you're going to build your base in your location. Think about what kind of weapons or strength that you want to have later on, because stuff like brawling levels with strength. So when you get to like 8 strength, you're going to be able to 1 or 2 tap people in brawling. But do you want to wait until you get 8 strength before you can use it? I don't really think so. And then if you have 8 strength in a melee weapon, even with no skill, you're probably still gonna, 2 shot people. So I don't think it really matters. And then later on in the game, you're not just gonna be meleeing people. You're gonna be using bows. You're gonna be using guns. If you have to get into a melee fight sometime after that, they're already gonna be weakened. so you don't really need as much damage anyway. But that's just my kind of philosophy there. I still think throwing is going to be important. Thinking back on this, I probably would adjust my character a little bit to have less throwing. Because if I'm going to use throwing as much as I just developed in my mind, I'd probably go like medium throwing maybe, and then I would just use throwing at the beginning of the game and finish up with brawling as much as possible. Stealth wise, I wanted stealth for hunting. I wanted to be able to sneak up on animals and throw my spear at them. So I wanted, a decent amount of stealth for hunting. But I don't think it's very important. Going through towns, puppets and stuff isn't really that big of a deal. It doesn't bother me too much. Um, this awareness I think would probably be pretty good. But we've kind of went over a bulk of this, and I don't think it's going to be too bad for us to kind of level stuff. Now, if you have no interest in any melee ability at all, I think going down to one strength is perfectly fine, and it's the best skill to go down to one probably, because it levels up quicker the weaker that you are. So I think that could be pretty interesting. Now, if you want to just passively level something, I think dexterity is probably the best. So if you just completely have no dexterity, it's going to slowly go up over time anyway, and it's going to give you more calories to burn. So there's some kind of interconnection between the attributes that's pretty interesting. So if you know that you're going to not be able to get food for a long period of time, you can decrease your dexterity down, increase your body weight, increase your constitution, which will increase your efficiency, increase your endurance, which will increase or decrease your gain. This also gives you more mass, which will give you more brawling damage because your brawling damage is affected by mass as well. And then as you're losing weight, you will be able to slowly gain more and more dex, which should slowly increase your throwing as you use it, and probably some other stuff. So let's say we're gonna make a character on this real quick. So let me look at this and kind of decide what we would do. So we want a character that is energy efficient. Okay. What I would say here is I'm probably gonna do like 4 on the Constitution. My thought on this at the moment, if I was going to level anything to max at the beginning of the game, it would be Constitution or Intelligence. Intelligence would give you the most benefit. So if we go over, like, it's going to give you the most benefit right now because you can't level it. So you might as well go Intelligence if you want that extra person. Personally, when they talk about tribe size and wanting more and more people in your tribe, I don't really see 5 versus 4 to be that big of a deal. Let's say each point in intelligence gives you a player. That means that once you get to 5, you're going to be able to have 5 players in your tribe, which that's great. But anyone that's played a survival game with communication, if it's like a really tactical game, you know that 5 players in a squad is like the sweet spot of just like chaos where nobody can like do anything, or you're really freaking good. When you go to 6, I'd probably do like three groups of 2. You could do 2 squads. That's perfectly fine. But I don't think it's that big of a deal to have one person down. And then eventually, if they ever let intelligence increase, um, I think that'd be perfectly reasonable. If I wanted to do max brawling damage, I could increase this to 3, then have 4, 1, 4. Dexterity would level over time, and then my intelligence and stuff would be good. Now, if we look at that and we go up here and you increase brawling, you can get advanced brawling, but I think this would kind of depend if you wanted advanced plus on brawling, because if you want to go for fast as possible for advanced plus on brawling, which I think would be the most reasonable thing to do if it has anything cool, like fighting styles or whatever, then this 300 XP that you get here might matter. Plus, it's going to make you more endurance efficient. So I think that would probably be a good thing. Then we go over here to Dex. We have 1 point for Dex. If we didn't care, if we cared about stealth, I'd probably go stealth. If we didn't, I'd probably go throwing because the throwing is going to increase decently well. And then we still got intelligence. I'd probably still just do this. Uh, Part of the reason why I don't do medical is because essentially, just like melee weapons, medical has items that completely negates the skill of medical. So tourniquets and stuff can heal things with one use. They're expensive, probably harder to find, but if you get enough supply of them over a period of time, it's not going to matter. Medium medical is pretty much basic, and I agree that that's probably the sweet spot for medical because it takes you, 2 or 3 rags to kind of stuff up a wound, which isn't that, you know, I think that's completely reasonable for real world stuff. But that's only like 4,400 uses to get to medium, okay? And so if you're using brawling at the first of the game, it's very simple to kind of, get like a little bleed, and then you're going to be able to negate a lot of the damage you would take with blocking, and then you will then be able to heal up with medical using the rags off of the zombie. So those together work very well. Also with this, if you didn't want to get like advanced plus endurance, so I don't know anything really about advanced plus skills at all. I'll just go ahead and say that. But I would say if you're going to get advanced plus in anything at the beginning of the game, these constitution skills are going to be the fastest thing that you're going to be able to do advanced plus because you're going to be using these constantly. And advanced plus with endurance, if it gave you 40% endurance recovery or something like crazy like that, and less food consumption, I would be all for that. So getting that fast as possible at the beginning. If not, I would do like 3 down and then be able to get medium running fairly quickly. So it'd be like 2,000, 4,000 XP to get medium running. You could probably get that in a day or so. So this right here would probably be the most optimal thing to do. If I was going to decrease the brawling down, say I did 3, I would go ahead and get melee weapons up. That means, you get a few kills, you would get basic melee. It wouldn't be that big a deal. But if there's advanced plus, I would just go with brawling because that means later on, if advanced plus is a thing, my brawling might have a lot more damage. And if I'm already blocking 80% of the damage with my hands anyway, and I get that to advanced plus, it might just make me a super tank. But I don't think maxing conditioning up to 5 is good because at the beginning of the game, essentially going 5 here is going to ruin somebody's day. Now, survival and engineering also kind of apply with where you build your base, and where I want to show you uh, to build a base kind of, I don't really need survival skill. It depends on how fast you want to build the base up, but you don't need survival skill if you're going to build in an area that has the things that you need to build, so like lumber and such. At that point you could collect it, store it, and then come back at a later time and build it. And if I was going to do that, I could just drop this survival skill down, increase my engineering so that I could hit advanced or whatever a lot faster if I wanted it, but I'm still perfectly happy with medium. And I think medium would be perfectly acceptable for engineering. And then I would be underneath medium so that I get more points. You see what I'm saying? So like this right here, I could probably hit advanced survival pretty quickly. And then also, if I was to go online real quick and look up what survival does, so we go scum survival. Affects basic crafting speed, and it gives you a compass. I mean, that's basically all it says. So I mean, it's literally it's there to help you build stuff faster. They probably wouldn't level up super slowly. I don't really know. It just depends on how much time you want to like spend building your base. If you have teammates, survival is less and less important. I could use the lumber mill to kind of offset my build probably. And now that I'm thinking about it, I might just do that. I think it'd be perfectly fine for me to go with no survival. But what I would say is that medium survival, I think, is neat, uh, purely for the fortifications. So let me see. Fortifications. Let's just go in game real quick. So I'll do this and this. So survival is going to level up fairly quickly. Medium endurance, running, brawling, throwing. I kind of want more throwing, but if I'm going to throw more, I'd probably be okay with this. I kind of want to get a little bit more though. Let's go ahead since I'm going to be by myself for the most part. I'm going to go 3, and then I'll give this 2, and then we will go slightly below there, and we'll go slightly above here. Or we could just go medium in both, but and then we could get throwing. Let's just get like, let's go 1.5, 3.5. We'll go slightly below there over here. The thing is with the engineering as well is it decreases the amount of materials that you need to build something. But that also means that the more engineering you have, the slower the engineering is going to level, I guess, which is kind of interesting. But let's just do medium on that, and then we'll kind of go in and we will see exactly the crafts and things like that. And I will try and show you a location that I found just not too long ago that I'm going to build at, but it may take a minute to get there. Try to do this while the pup's asleep. Okay, so it looks like we spawned at the wrong spot. But what I found is up here on the north side of the map, it seems that it's kind of difficult, but you can't really build next to the external boundary. My original plan was to build next to the external boundary so that I wouldn't have to worry about one side of my base. Just go ahead and respawn. Now, so far with my gameplay, I've found, I think, 2 spots that I really like. Alright, so you can see right here, kind of in the middle of the map, we have 2 squares or so to kind of run across if we're gonna get anywhere. I like how this bunker's in the middle of nowhere. See, but multiplayer servers, you're not allowed to build in a lot of places, which is kind of annoying, but I do like something like this. Alright, so let's see if we can find something to defend ourselves with real quick. Kind of like that idea of having a small barbed wire area to look. So if you hit the side, it'll bleed. It's rather interesting. I just want to look like this. Probably won't be anything major in here that I need, but I'm getting off topic. I just wanted a weapon real quick. All right. So, up, Chunky. I wasn't really expecting that guy to be there. Let me look at the health real quick. So, I mean, we took 87. We got 4 bleeds. So that's 4 skills, like 4 heals that we could do right now. Got a military helmet. I can't do anything with that, can I? Yeah. But that's still, 4 bleeds. But if you have a higher uh, constitution, you can see, where is it at? I think you have like a heal rate. So right now the damage rate is like 9 or so. My math is 110. And so, okay, so let's look at this real quick. So running right now, we're getting 0.4 to 0.6. Okay. And then with survival, we can look which way is north. So we know that is where we need to go. And then we can take this down and do a shift W, hit a jog. And now you can see with the jog, we are getting 0.4 to 0.5. It's not very much difference. It'll go down when we're going downhill, but when we go downhill, you will see that our endurance, where's our endurance? Our endurance right now, you can see it's 94. And right on the right side, that is our endurance regeneration. So we don't lose any endurance until that drops to like medium over there on the left. So now it's back to 95. Now it's 96. 97. 99. 100. Now if we go back over here, we're still getting 0.3 because we're going downhill, but we're not losing a ton. Just basically off just the actual ability itself. And then the dex isn't going up a super crazy amount right now because we need more body weight. But you can see right now we have basic running, and our dex is at 1.5. And so this is barely leveling right now, but our movement speed is at 26.7 kilometers per hour. Okay. And that puppet that we fought essentially was a big boy and took more blows. But if we had a throwing weapon, we could have softened him up before we actually hit him. And actually, I want to see how much we got from that one fight. So we go to brawling. We got 1,851 XP fighting that big boy. And that's because we had a decent amount. And the thing is, with the amount of stamina that we have right now and the recovery rate that we have right now, we can constantly just lay into them if we want. So we don't really have to spend so much time just like running around and not using any of the abilities. But you can see with this right now that we're getting a point 0.3, point 0.4 on the downhills, point 0.4, point 0.5, point 0.6 on the uphills. If we end up putting more weight on us, we will get more of this, I believe. So it is raised by moving in general, walking, running, swimming, etc. Is lowered by not moving, staying still for long periods of time. It influences health points, stamina, damage, and status, resistance, immune system, calorie, and water consumption efficiency. So with this, like on the uphill right now, we're almost getting point 0.6. So, I mean, it's leveling at a decent pace. If we were going to drop anything, I would drop brawling, but I think, if we did this, let's remake a character we could remake a character with no survival, and I want to say I would do basic engineering, and then I could just level engineering up by building at the beginning. Could be the way to go. But you can see 26.7 kilometers per hour. We've been running for a couple minutes. We've almost made it across one square. Um, our stamina is still at 93%. And you can see even like if we sprint right here, it's dropping down at a decent pace. Like 1% even on the downhill slope. But everything else, it's not too bad. One thing is getting stuck on rocks, but the whole point is basically you kind of want something that has some uphills and some downhills and not a whole bunch. So last time I ran like across this middle line here, and he pretty much made it the whole way up without any major issues. So it's all about finding the right route for the most part if you're wanting to do this. Yeah, right back into it. Point 0.3, point 0.4, point 0.5. Endurance at 100%, which allows us to keep fighting and we don't have to worry about, just running around. But now we will remake another character. Oh, I'm sorry, pup. I keep accidentally stepping on her. Okay. So now we go single player, we go create. Try to remember what we did before. I don't fully remember. I think we did 2244. Okay. Now if we did this, we can get her brawling up a decent bit. We get her throwing up a decent bit. Stealth, we want to be able to get to medium, at least is what I'm going for. Engineering, I mean, we could go advanced, we could go basic. I'd probably do that. Now, survival-wise, we don't really need any more than medium. So if we really wanted to be conservative here, we could drop down both of these probably to that. And then we could increase awareness to where it'll almost be medium. And then we can just level our camo up naturally. And that would probably be one of the better builds that I would do. Then we could go medium up, or we could go ahead and grab basic running. So that's probably the two toss-ups there. If you want basic running or not, it will give you a little bit more movement speed. But if we do more endurance, we'll have a little bit more endurance and stuff to use. So let's go ahead and do like medium running. Brawling, I mean, it's a little bit lower than it was, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. Let's actually go over here and do 0.5, 2.5, and we have the 4 decks, so we're going to see what our actual movement speed is with that. Now we can go brawling up to there. Throwing is going to level up pretty quickly. Then we're going to go medium endurance. We'll do this awareness a little bit up. We'll do survival to where it's almost to medium, and we'll do engineering to where it's almost to medium. And then we'll level engineering up as we go along. So we go uh, this, and we'll see what the difference is. And the pup got up. Ginger, what are you doing? You want to go outside? I always think it's better to kind of spawn over on these sides. If we're going to be perfectly honest, because you spawn with the better clothing. All right, Ginger went and laid in her doggy bed, so. Secure communication with human asset established. Human asset. Welcome to Skull Island. Tech One Corporation. My designation is dual energetic entity neural appliance Artian. I am an artificial intelligence created by the Tech One Corporation tasked with overseeing the Scum Shell protocols, including the preparation of human assets. If you wish to activate the tutorial, Jesus. Secure channel closed. Okay. So this we only have basic and survival and basic and the other stuff as well. So it's not the bigger deal. But when you spawn in these colder climates, you get this cotton hoodie, which I think, it's a lot better than everything else that you can really get, because you get this extra storage space. Now, when we look over here, this is still going up a decent bit. Our movement speed is still 26.5. Now, if we would have taken the running, this would have been higher, but essentially our movement speed is almost the same as it was. And you can see that we don't have hardly any constitution at all. So our endurance will be a lot less, our life points will be a lot less. But for the most part, see, like stamina is 51. I don't remember what it was on the other one. 85 HP. And then this right here, you can see dexterity raised by calorie deficiency is lowered by calorie sufficiency. Influences movement speed, action speed, including crafting, eating, and reloading. All right. And you can see that we're still losing, a decent bit of stamina running here. We need to go kind of westish, northwestish. We don't have the survival for that, but that's north. This is west, so that's fine. And then we can do Shift W Then we come back over here, and we're getting 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. Just kind of jogging. And with the snow biome, there isn't as much kind of laying around, so you have all the snow that we can do. There's not as many obstacles to kind of get stuck on, so it's a lot easier to run through it. And our strength, isn't too low. It does take us a little bit to get across here. But what I normally do is I'll start off, I'll come over here, get a little bit of snow, pick up the rock, and then kind of go and find some more rocks. And I usually go ahead and cut down trees and build 2 or 3 stone spears for the most part for defense. But in the winter biome, that's a little bit harder to do. However, I do find the winter biome does have a decent amount of logs and things, so that's a plus. Kind of like search for food. All right, so let's go over here. They had 350 XP. So we got 200 XP right there for cutting down that one tree. So if that's all that we did for 200 XP, you need 5 for 1,000. So you'd need 20 trees. And I'm pretty sure when you're building a base, you're going to use a lot more than 20 trees. Right? Now, these basic wooden spears, they can't be reused like other spears, but they're still okay. But when you start with this like hoodie, it does give you quite a lot extra that you can use. But you can see when you're up here, finding food and water is not super bad. Go ahead and look how much we get from this. So we're at 790. All right. So we got 200 for that, and we get 200 this. So for one tree, we're getting 400 XP. And then we get access to all of these. So you can see it will not take long at all to get survival up to what we want. Now we're going to go ahead and find where we were running again, get up to a medium pace, hit shift, and now we're pretty much good to run. Now we don't have enough weight on us to actually increase our strength, but we're still leveling this up. See, 0.5. Running in the snow is a little bit more difficult as well. So I believe that helps. I don't really know exactly, but I feel like the snow helps level this up a little bit. But it has a lot more declines and inclines when you're running. So that's kind of something. But this is part of the reason why I think that I like endurance better because it's used in combat and everything else. Our endurance is 51. Let's see if we're getting 400 XP just off the tree itself. It's going to bring up a calculator here. So let's do 1,100,010, which 110,000. That's what you need to go from 0 to this, and then we divide that by 400, which is the basic thing, and you get 2,775 trees. Now, if you figure out how many trees that it's going to take you to build a base, you can get an idea of what we're dealing with here. But if we divide this, or we go 2,775 times 2, will give us how many actions that we're going to have to do. And then let's say each of those are like 5 seconds. That's 27,750 seconds. And if we divide that by 60, that gives us 462 minutes. And we divide that by 60, and you get 7.7 hours. So if I just went across the whole map cutting trees, it would take me, probably 8 or 9 hours with travel time. And now you got to think, is that worth it to you when you want to do something? Are you wanting to go and level that up by itself? And now if you're base building, you know that you're going to have materials for your base, and who knows how many materials that is. So just kind of a toss up on what you're looking for there. Now, the location that I'm going to show you is over here next to D2 is essentially what's going on. But you can see, even with a load, I could probably fill up my pockets with rocks or something, but even with a load, I am not running out of stamina anytime soon. I'm gonna go ahead and get some of these rocks. Go ahead and get the big ones. But yeah, it's not gonna take much. But it looks like our points went up a little bit. Right here, you can see we have hit the threshold now to where we're gaining strength. So we're gaining 3.7 muscle. It's changing at a little bit per day, not a whole lot. And so that's really all you got to do at the very beginning of the game is get you enough spears and get your pockets full of rocks. And then you just kind of run to where you're going. You can see this is going up a little bit. These are going up a little bit. What we're going to do is continue running in this direction. I'm probably going to take this pup outside real quick. We may get stuck, we may not, because we have to cross over that big mountain. I don't really know exactly what path we're taking right now. But I'm going to take her outside, and I'll be back. We'll go outside, pup. Never mind. It seems they use their puppy pad. It's a well behaved, well trained dog. I've been trying to just take them outside as much as I just watch them, and when I think they need to go, I just take them directly out. But it seems like she already knows how to use puppy pads, so it's interesting. Wow, I might have the most perfect puppy known to man. This pup, you know, I raised Boston Terriers and miniature Schnauzers growing up when I was younger. I was way before before the old internet took over. And I really wanted to get back into miniature Schnauzers, but this Boston, perfect temperament, plays, calms down, sleeps, lap dog. We have medium survival, right? Okay, we're a little bit under basic. I know you can't throw when you're here, but yeah, especially these small zombies, they don't take very much to actually kill. So that was one fight. We have gained a little bit of throwing XP. Is ranged by doing damage to players and NPCs by throwing weapons and other items at them. Influences aiming, dot, passively throwing, actually throwing speed. So I mean, we could probably just take a bunch of stones and throw them at people if we really wanted to. However, it seems that this quick thing that we got over here is not working properly. I don't really know what's going on there. Let's go ahead and take that, take this, take that. Because these should automatically throw, but it hasn't been. All right, we're gonna do this. So now we can throw every single item that we got. Go ahead and treat. Can't treat anything now. All right. Cut into rag strips. Hmm. It's not going down because we're actually. So as long as you're actually doing something, it doesn't go down. Interesting. All right. So we're still going in the same direction. Now, where we're going actually isn't exactly where I wanted to before. So what I found out was right here, I believe, there is a lumber mill that has a ton of wood and all kinds of other supplies. Now, the two favorite spots that I've found so far is this lumber mill area and right here next to the bridge there's like a little shack. I like this bunker right here. If I was able to build in this bunker on an actual server, I would, but they don't allow it, so that sucks. I had the perfect plan to turn one of those bunkers into like the perfect base with car storage and everything. Um, but that has now changed. But I like being in a moderate range to these outposts so I can trade, especially early. So I want access to money and I want access to get a car eventually. So what my plan is I like if I could build a little shelter right here was my original plan in that little place next to the bridge. There's a one room, one lock area that's right next to some dumb stuff that isn't going to do anything at all. And I could build a raft behind it here, and then I would have access to this whole river essentially, and I could go anywhere on this river all the way across. Now, I think that would be the best place to start a base. Having access to this waterway, I think, is the most important thing because essentially, that waterway, when you don't have a vehicle, it means that when you craft a raft, you're going to have access to all of this. So it's basically your highway. And I think that's pretty interesting. I like that idea because say you put a base right here, you can travel up this waterway here all the way to this lake, get out, walk to this right here. You can take this, you can travel it all the way down to here, get out, walk to there. Okay? If you really want to, you can take out here, come out. There's a lot of routes right here that you can take. Plus, you have access to water all the time, so you don't have to worry about being dehydrated or anything because all that's fresh water over here. But you also get access to all these things along the way. So you could do a loot route, you come over, you grit that, drive your boat down. You can hit these military outposts. You can come down here. There's a town on the coast or whatever right here. You can come down, hit whatever this is, come down, hit whatever that is, come down. I mean, you have to leave your boat, but essentially what my plan is that I'm kind of wanting to use the raft to transport some of my goods. I also don't really see many people spawn over here. Sometimes you can spawn right here, and that's pretty cool. But over here on D2, there is those cabins and stuff over here, which works really good. But we are going slightly up into the mountain range here, is where I'm trying to build my base right now. This is purely because basically I'm wanting to come over here and have access to that wood mill, which I can then use like a wheelbarrow, push it over to the river, put on a raft, load it on the raft, and then go up the river. a bit closer to the base, maybe. I don't really know. Depends on where the river goes, I guess. Um, and then after that point, what I liked about it the most, I believe, is that there was a bunch of repair shops, there's a bunch of warehouses, there's a bunch of all kinds of different buildings in these three spots, all relatively close range, which is why I wanted to build this wood cabin down here. But then I figured out that that wood cabin apparently has a bunch of other little bitty structures next to it. So you could essentially turn that into a big fortified area and you get free, like three or four like free buildings. But I wanted to build next to that wall. But it's also in a big field. It's in a good build area, but I think it's kind of noticeable. So I ended up running a little bit farther down the wall and found a decent spot there that has a building right next to the wall. And then we would have essentially would be able to run down the mountain to get to there, here, and there, and come back, and we'd have access to this right here and that right there. And then we will have this road where we could actually come down and head towards this waterway. Once we get to the waterway, we could have a raft and use the raft to come all the way down to the bottom. Or we could, have a car hit the road, use the car to get down to the bottom. We have access to this roadway that comes across through the mountain, and then we could have a raft that comes to this outpost. Flare. All right. So this is still going up, and we have. So one hit of melee weapons give us 28 damage. Brawling is up to 667. Throwing is already going up a decent bit. That's 7.3%. Go ahead and take a detour real quick. So down here appears to be a small little town. I wonder if you get enough fame points if you can claim a whole town, to be honest. I feel like you can. You just can't build there. But if that's the case, you don't even need a base. You can just take over a town, lock every door. Let's go ahead and see if we can sneak up on this guy. Got throwing 733408. So you can get fairly close to these zombies without them hearing you. And I don't really know if these count towards awareness or not. All right, so let's look again. I think we went from 408 to 550, so we got about 150 XP there. 150 XP from 3, so I mean, we're getting like 50 XP per throw. Now, we didn't start with this, but we'll go ahead and look at it. So if we got a million divided by 50,000 throws, and then we're doing that, you know, 3 or so per, I mean, that's 6,000, but it's steep. I think we've did this math before though in the past, and that's why when we get this down, so how much did we have? So this one, I think we had 4 less. So if we put one more point in throwing, we'd be at 80%. And then if we put another point, it'd be 87%. So at 80%, we would need 200,000 XP, which is what we need to go for next time. And then so you do 200,000 divided by 50. So that'd be 4,000 throws, and then we're 3 per zombie. So you're doing 1,013, something like that. And that's a lot more reasonable, right? Yeah. Oh, again, like he can hit us, but he doesn't have a lot of damage, and when we block, we can negate like 50% of his damage that he hits us with. And then if we want to, we can just go ahead and repair. So like right now, our healing is at 0. And then we're gonna come over here, and we need to go here, and we can treat. And treat. And treated. And treat it again. And treat it again. And treat it again. So we're in C2, C1. But that was a little bit of healing there. Then we come over here, come to stats, intelligence, medical. We have 39 XP. Pick up our spear. See, but all these places you can go up to, and you can claim this. Grinding stone. So as far as I can tell, like this whole town right here, I mean, you would need enough fame to claim the buildings. But I think it would be fine. Yeah. Of course, I got the crappy spear. Stone spear, it doesn't take that much, but you can see right there, 4 hits with a crappy spear, and it's dead. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Old melee skill. And then we go over here, and we can go to strength, melee weapons, we got 50 XP. It's gonna take a while. But melee weapons have a lot less risk, so yeah, that's just a small little town, though. I mean, you got 3 buildings in close proximity. I mean, I don't know how much points it takes to claim that, but if you start with no survival skill or anything, you could probably get enough to claim that fairly quickly. Bed down. I mean, you could even just build your bed out here, but put a bed down or whatever right there. You bring your materials in. The only issue with that is that people could come there looking for loot and then realize that it's locked up. But I mean, that's not a bad little spot though. What's going on with their health right now? Oh, we still got the C2. I should have cut up some more cloth. Yeah. But you gotta look like I don't know what that is. That's a drop probably. But so like right there, it's a small little town in the middle of nowhere. Well, not even a town. It's like 3 buildings in the middle of nowhere. You have stuff that can spawn there. You have access to this other town nearby. It's not very far from this selling spot. You have access to these towns over here, and you have access to this waterway. I mean, it's not the best waterway, but it's something. So, I mean, I don't think any of that's terrible. And we're getting pretty close to going over there. We're actually sprinting when we shouldn't have been, so let's just search something real quick. And the pup has went to sleep. Huh, Ginger? You don't even really have to stop moving to get your endurance back either, because you can see right now we're walking. and it's still going up by 0.3. Strength is still going up. So what has it been? It's been like 30 minutes or something. We have 119 added to the end of that. So this takes some time. We can gain muscle. Be a little bit. We'll be up to 3 in a few days or so. But yeah, I would say that Constitution, I mean, it'd be one of the easier things to level, but I'm also kind of iffy on, because to level it, you have to constantly move. And I think I would prefer just to have my endurance up and maybe like put it to 3 or 4. Probably just put like 3. We might have to start the game with no stealth, but I believe you can I think you can passively level stealth. Because if you look, like, I don't know what our movement speed, let's see what our movement speed is right now. So we're doing 19.2 out of 26.5. So I mean, you can level stealth up basically 1 a second. So let's look at this real quick. Are we gonna bleed to death? What's going on? I feel like the bleed, I mean, it's still there. Let's go ahead and I'm not super worried about it, I guess. I don't know. Our HP is getting kind of low. Maybe we should be. Let's go ahead and fix it up. We should have fixed it up before we left. All right, let's just say that we can get 1 stealth per second. So I'm gonna do 1 1 1 0. So that would be from 0. So you'd basically have 1,000,000 and something seconds. Divide or 1 1 1 0 0 0. All right, divided by 60. Divided by 60. 308 hours. 12 days. 12 days of walking is just a bit much. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I want to do 12 and a half days of walking. I don't think that's for me. Comparing to like this, I mean, I feel like strength is probably one of the things you could passively level a lot easier than other things. If I drop my intelligence down, I could go ahead and drop the intelligence down, drop the survival down, or yeah. Because the only thing with like engineering is that it helps you basically build all these ammunitions here, which we don't need at the beginning of the game, and advanced lock protection. The forced lock is all in advanced, and I think so. Like this metal chest, I believe, is advanced, and the big cabin is advanced. I don't think we need any of that, but I would like to be able to build the wooden cabin relatively quickly. Which is just basic engineering. Like everything that we need is basically just basic engineering. Medium engineering is what we want to go towards. The workbench would be good for making bullets, but we can find places to make those if we need. And I want this large log shed. But I don't think that's going to take nearly as much time to level as the stealth. So I think what we do is we drop that down. Survival wise, I mean, we get all the basic fortifications and stuff. Medium fortifications we get at basic, which these are just nails and scrap and a toolbox. Advanced fortifications require these lead plates. I don't think that'll be as bad, but I don't think it's necessary. Depends on how many lead, like how hard it is to find lead plates. But this doesn't seem terrible to build either. But it's definitely more than this. Basically 3 pieces of metal, 3 lumber, and a toolbox. Depends on those plates. It just depends on how hard these plates are. But that's just it's medium to get to that, so I don't really think it really matters. The improvised wood chest, I don't really think matter, or the more advanced wood chest, I don't really think matters much. So I mean, for the most part, I don't really think that we need much of anything besides just the basics. It's just that the survival increases the actual speed at which you do things. And dexterity does as well. All right. You see, we are getting fairly close to where I was going, so right in here somewhere is pretty good. We might as well just explore this out a little bit to kind of figure out what's going on. I don't know what town is over there, but you see, all of this is pretty snowy. There's not nearly as many bushes and stuff for people to use. Um, and then right here is a waterway which we could use to get down to that lumber mill if we really wanted to. And now I'm kind of split though because there's basically a perfect building for me to use up here for what I'm trying to do. But if we build over here closer to these towns, we could get, two buildings or something inside of our area, which would be nice. And it's a little bit closer of a walk compared to where we're trying to go. I really don't want to remake that character I made on the survival thing, but I don't know. I started with medium awareness on this dude, but the thing is that the awareness is going to level up as you use it as well. So, like, if we look right here, what is our awareness at? We got 440. We do that. We got 450. So, I mean, we got 10 XP just from doing that. All right. So let's see. So for medium awareness, we need that much XP. Let's just divide that by 10. It's 11,000. 11,000, for seeing a rock. I think we can get that just crafting a base. We're going to be perfectly honest. You think I'm not going to see 11,000 items while building? All right. So we're getting closer to that little structure that we can see there. I'm more or less just curious to see what's around here so I know when I go back to the other server. Oh no. Foot wetness. Okay. Well, that didn't happen to me on the other server, that's for sure. I don't know what my constitution was on the other server though, because you have basically more uh defense and stuff versus everything when you have more constitution. I might have had a higher constitution there. Because right now I'm thinking, if I remake my other character, I would lower my intelligence down. I would definitely just go to like 3 intelligence, to be honest. I just want to see what's over here before I die. Because when I build over here, this right here is a lumber yard. So I mean, I can chop down as many and stuff as I want, but if I wanted to kind of spice things up a little bit, I could come down here and hit. This is a military area right here. Seems like every place that I go to is a military place. So I mean, we essentially have a place to gather wood and stuff passively if we don't want to chop anything down. We have enough trees to chop down if we want to. We have a whole car spawns. We have 2 medical areas here. I mean, I think right here is just like one of the best spots. But essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a base with at least one building in it, and I wanted to essentially make a doorway that's next to the building. So they're not going to be able to blow up the building or anything, but the building's going to act as a gate house. So if they're trying to break in, you can go into the building and then shoot them through the hole in the door or the hole in the window. And then essentially that'll be kind of a defense at the front, as well as be a place that we can kind of hide when we enter the building. I want to see what my character. I don't think that we can actually just change his stats right now. But if I was going to remake him, how would I do it? So we do single create. I would stay with 3 intelligence. I think we were at 2.5 strength, 4 dex. I think we had 2.5 constitution. We got that at medium. We don't want to level up stealth. And we can get this pretty dang high. In engineering, we want basic. And we want basic survival. Engineering, we could go to medium. And then awareness. I mean, we could still do that fairly easily. Unless we want to like bump up camouflage, but so I mean right here, I mean awareness is gonna level up fairly quickly. We'll hit basic survival fairly quickly. We already have the ability to make the raft, and once we hit basic or medium engineering, it should reduce our construction costs and give us access to the other building that I want to build. And then this, we could go for endurance, or we could go medium endurance and halfway decent running. Do we want more endurance? I don't think we need any more endurance. We could increase our strength if we really wanted to. Stealth is almost medium. Throwing is almost advanced. Awareness, I mean, we can't decrease that anymore. We could just get rid of the running. But the thing is that conditioning is one of the things that's like the hardest to like level. Hmm. 11 days. That just seems like a lot. Like 11 days compared to like this is like 300,000 for throwing. And let's say like if you did 300,000, 300,000, let's just divide it by 50, 6,000 throws. $20,000 throws, divide that by 3, you're looking at 6,000 something zombies. So I'd probably, let's just go medium, and then we can increase stealth. And then that will give us, what does that give us here? Let's see, 300,000 again. I think where it's at now is at the 200,000 mark. See, 200,000. Divided by 60, divided by 60. 24. So, I mean, that's 2 days. I think 2 days is reasonable. And then throwing would need 1,000,000 and like 2,000 or something. Okay. So if you do 1,000,000 and 2,000, divide that by 50. That's 20,000 throws. And you divide that by 3 or so per zombie. 6,000 something zombies. So, I mean, I think medium throwing it would be okay. I mean, it's going to basically, we're going to have to focus on throwing a lot at the very beginning, like as much as possible throwing wise. And then, yeah. See, but let's see if we brought, so like if we did this and we did 1, 2, let's look at this real quick. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say if we did 8. And let's say that's 500,000, maybe 500,000 or 400,000. Let's go 500,000 divided by 60 divided by 60 divided by 24. 5 days. and you already have a pretty decent usable skill. So I'm thinking that would probably be all right. A week for a skill that's useful early, and I think this is good. Okay. So I think that'd be all right. 5 days, I could deal with that. I mean, that's 5 days of constant walking, but just in general, I think that time frame is okay. We could still use these in other plays if we needed to, like demolition, do throwing. Get that up there. Let's go ahead and say that throwing is now 700,000. So let's go 700,000. Let's do 14,000. So spears, I mean, 14,000, but oop, it's 14,000. But I mean, we could throw that many rocks, I think, as well. But anyway, if we use 3 spears, it'd be a little over 4,000 zombies, or about 5,000 zombies. So, I mean, that's probably okay. And then this awareness will go up to medium pretty quickly, and then you could raise above survival. We're gonna get the basics of what we need pretty quickly. We need to get to medium to kind of level that up. Need medium to reinforce it is what's going to happen. Endurance is probably okay, but I don't really care about running either. I mean, you get more running just by running, and we're going to run probably a decent bit anyway. The conditioning is the thing, is because if you're not running, your conditioning is going down. So if you don't start with a good conditioning skill, that's the problem. Now, we already said we didn't really care about awareness, but the survival skill is pretty much where it needs to be. Engineering's fine. We will lose a lot of speed building without this. If we don't do awareness, we can get this to medium. Okay. I don't think that we care about running speed as much as it sucks. I mean, give us 5% speed boost. I mean, it might be worth it. Throwing is good. Stealth is good. I don't think we can change this anymore. Because, I mean, I would like to just dump the awareness and get some better stats for everything else here. But, I mean, if we're going to protect a building, we probably do need medium survival at the beginning. It's hard to decide because if you have more survival, you decrease the amount of time it takes you to cut logs and everything, which makes building faster and gathering resources faster. And if your engineering is higher, you use less resources building what you're going to build. So I would ideally want to dump these in and have both at max, but I would probably want max survival and like medium engineering. But to do that, you need to cut stat points from somewhere. And we've already seen that stealth needs to be at least in this range. Throwing, we probably could level, but it's gonna take a while. Hold up, let me look here. So what was it again? If we did throws at 50 XP, 22,000 throws doesn't seem bad. I mean, it's a grind, but 22,000 throws I don't think would be bad. Divide that by 3, you're looking at 7,000 or so. We're going to use throwing for hunting. We're going to use throwing for zombies. But conditioning, jeez. Because if you go 2.5 here, and we drop our dexterity, I mean, with 2, we can get medium endurance and basic running. We can get advanced survival and basic engineering. So the advanced survival would allow us to build everything as quickly as, or get all the resources as quickly as possible. This would allow us to build our first building and structures slightly cheaper. And then with high dex, that should help us craft things faster as well with survival. .5, 2, 4, 3.5. Basic engineering allows us to build a raft. 2.5, 2, 4, 3.5. Okay. All right, let me